Assalamu alaikum everybody. Our lesson today is talking about integers. What about this word integers, guys? Integers is the set of the numbers that includes the counting numbers and their opposites and zero. What are the counting numbers? Of course, everybody know how to count. Everybody knows how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and so on, guys. Those are called the counting numbers and their opposites. Their opposites here are called the negative numbers, which is -1, -2, -3, -4, and any number below 0, any number less than 0. Okay, and of course 0 is also an integer number. So as I said, the integers are the set of numbers that includes the counting numbers and their opposites and 0. So the counting numbers here are called positive numbers, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, of course, as you know. Then then the negative numbers, which are below 0, which are less than 0, which are -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. And of course 0 is an integer number. Okay, let's take one example here, or let's show how to represent the integers. For example, using the thermometer. If I said you can, what are different ways to represent integers? That's the first way, using the thermometer. Here we said you can use integers to degrees of temperature measured on a thermometer, like that thermometer, like the shown thermometer here, when the temperature goes below 0. When the temperature goes below 0, of course, it will be so cold. Okay, so that number will be written as a negative sign because it is below 0. So if I said, for example, the temperature today is 6 degrees below 0. If I want to write 6 degrees below 0 as a number, I'm going to write that number as -6 Celsius degrees. So 6 degrees below 0 will be written as -6. So -6 here means what, guys? -6 here means 6 degrees below 0, 6 degrees less than 0. Okay? So 6 degrees only, this will be +6. But just I'll say only 6. If I said only 6, that means +6. Of course, guys, 6 Celsius degrees warmer than 0. Okay, and -6 Celsius degrees is colder than 0, of course. Okay, and the distance from 0 is the same. So 6 Celsius degrees is 6 units from 0, and -6 Celsius degrees also is 6 units from 0. Okay, so I want you to know that -6 and 6 have the same distance from the number 0, and also you know that -6 means 6 degrees below 0, and 6 degrees means 6 degrees more than 0. Of course, 6, if the temperature in one room, for example, in the room is 6 degrees, and the temperature in another room is -6 Celsius degrees, of course the other room will be colder. Okay, so again, negative numbers are written using negative sign, and the negative numbers are below 0 or less than 0. Let's now know how to use the number line to represent the integers also. As I said, the number line can also show the numbers greater than and less than 0, like the red line here, which is that red number line. And also, as I said, that the integers are the set of numbers that includes the counting numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, and their opposites, which is -1, -2, -3, and so on, and 0. So if you looked at that number line, you will find here that 0 in the middle here, and the numbers on the right of 0, those are called positive numbers, or the counting numbers, which are called positive numbers. And on the left of 0, you can find many numbers here which are called negative numbers, of course, which are less than 0. So any number on the left of 0 will be less than 0, and any number on the right of 0 will be more than 0. What about 0, guys? 0 is negative number or positive number? 0 is neither positive nor negative. So the opposite of 0 is 0. So for example, if I want to get the opposite of any positive number, will be the same number but as negative, of course. So for example, if I said, what is the opposite of 6? Yes, exactly, will be 6, but using the negative sign will be -6. So how to get the opposite of any number? Just change the sign of the number. So for example, if I said, what is the opposite of -7? Exactly, will be 7. What is the opposite of 8? Yes, will be -8. Just change the sign of the number. Okay? So what about 0, guys? Yes, someone will say 0 is positive or negative number. Of course, 0 is neither positive nor negative. And what about the opposite? The opposite of 0? As I said, that 0 doesn't have a sign. So what is the opposite of 0? Still 0. So 0 doesn't have opposite, guys. Okay? And the opposite of a number. What about the opposite of a number is the same number itself. Let's take one example. The opposite of number 3 is -3. And the opposite of -3 will be 3. So the opposite of the opposite will be the number itself. Like the opposite of 8, or I can say it another way, the opposite of 8. What is the opposite of 8? Will be itself, will be 8. So the opposite of a number is the number itself, guys. Okay? So how to get the opposite of any number? Just change the sign of the number. Okay? Okay. Let's solve the questions in the book. In question number 1, he said, which is warmer, 2 Celsius degrees or -5 Celsius degrees? And tell how you know. If there are 2 rooms, guys, the temperature in the first room is 2 Celsius degrees, and the temperature in the other room is -5 Celsius degrees. Let's remember the number line. Yes, 0 in the middle, and 2 Celsius degrees will be on the right of 0, and -5 Celsius degrees will be on the left of 0. But which is closer to 0 here, guys? 2 or -5? Exactly 2. So 2 is closer to 0, so of course 2 Celsius degrees will be greater, and of course will be warmer, because 2 is closer to 0 than -5, guys. Question 2, which integers do you use for counting? When you are counting, what are you gonna say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did you say negative? Of course, I didn't say any negative here. So which integers do you use for counting? Yes, of course, the positive numbers. So the positive numbers, of course, guys, are used for counting. Question 3, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Question 3, how would you read that number? -30, as I said now, just say it as -30, or you can say 30 degrees below 0, or 30 below 0, okay, or 30 less than 0. In question 4 to 9, use the number line below, give the integer that each point represents, then write its opposite and tell how many units the number is from 0. Okay, I'm going to use the blue line drawn down here to answer these questions. So question 4 is, what about point A? How to get point A? As I said, firstly 0 in the middle, then count to the left. How many units? Start counting from 0. 0, after that will be -1. As I said, the negative numbers will be on the left of 0. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, which is F here, -6, -7. So point A represents which number here? Yes, exactly, it represents number -7 here. So point A will be -7. And now, then write its opposite. What about the opposite of -7, guys? As I say, just change its sign to be 7. So the opposite of -7 will be 7. And tell how many units the number is from 0. Just count how many units from point A to 0. Yes, only 7 units. So will be 7 units from 0, of course. Question 5. Question 5 is B. Okay, what about point B? Point B, yes, is located on the right of 0. If it's on the right of 0, of course, will be positive number. Will not be negative number, because the negative numbers are on the left of 0. So what about point B? Just count from 0, guys. Count from 0, then after 0, 1, then 2, which is E here, then 3, then 4. So point B, of course, will be 4. Okay? And what about its opposite? What about the opposite of 4? Of course, guys, will be -4. So the opposite of 4 here will be what? Will be -4. Okay? And how many units from 0? Of course, 4 units from 0. What about point C? Point C exactly in the middle here, which is on 0. So what about the value of point C? What about point C represents which number? Of course, guys, it's so clear here, it represents 0. What about point D? Point D on the left of 0. So of course it will be a negative number, which is going to be -2. And how many units of that number from 0? Of course, 2 units from 0. What about point E, which is the opposite of point D, which is exactly 2, which is how many units from 0? Exactly will be 2 units from 0. Okay, what about point F? It is so clear here, it is negative 5, and of course it is 5 units from 0. In those questions, guys, I didn't write the opposite of those numbers. I want you to write the opposite of those numbers, and I think that you can do them easily. How to write the opposite of the numbers? Only by changing the sign of that number. And that's our lesson today, and thank you so much.